Welcome back. You are watching Global Eye. Shifting our focus now to Europe-India relations. What is the EU expecting from India in this fractured geopolitical environment where the Ukraine-Russia war continues to rage on, and we also have a conflict in the Middle East? Joining us right now is Stefano, the Secretary General of the European External Action Service. Mr. Sannino, thank you very much for joining us. Tell us what brings you to India. What is the #1 priority that brings you here?
Well, essentially, the idea is to work on strengthening and broadening and deepening the relationship between India and the European Union. As you said, we are in a situation which is very peculiar. I mean, we have not lived in a such fractured and complex world like the one that we are living now. And under these circumstances, we need to find new ways of working together, because at the end of the day we need a world which is more stable, more secure for everybody, for our citizens, and to make it sure that we can grow together instead of focusing on crisis and wars.
Right. Now, the war against Ukraine waged by Russia has been on for more than 2 years now. What has been your message to India at this juncture?
I don't want to lecture, and that's not...
Because you said recently that this is the #1 priority for Europe.
Certainly for Europe it is the #1 priority, and I'm very open in saying that for us this is an existential threat. What Putin is doing against Ukraine is what can happen tomorrow to other countries very close to us, or even within the European Union. So we need to make it sure that this is not happening. We have had already many other occasions where Russia has tried to do so. Was it in Georgia, or was it been in Ukraine now? The instability that is generating in a number of countries in its former space, the idea of recreating this sort of imperialist idea of recreating a Soviet sphere of influence, all this for us is not only unacceptable, but is a real threat. Now, I understand that seen from here, from a certain distance, it takes a different taste, and here is felt more the consequences of this war rather than the causes, the origin, the roots of this war. But I think that regardless our different, let's say, approach or the different perception of the threat, it is important that we continue working together, and even more so under the present circumstances, exactly for what I was saying before, because the instability is something that is worrying for us, worrying for India, worrying for all those countries that still need to grow and to provide their people and their citizens the means to live in prosperity.
Right. Is there also now a certain amount of disappointment with India, frustration?
You mean the European Union vis-à-vis India?
Yeah.
No, I mean, again, we have to accept also differences. We are certainly in a situation of the call it however you want to call it, global governance, the way the world is run, which is very fluid. See, for example, what is happening in New York. I mean, the Security Council is paralyzed, but the General Assembly has become a much more relevant instrument to resonate, which is the position of the countries in the world. So I think that we need to accept also the nuances and the differences that are there. I think that India has always been clear about the importance of not using force to solve conflicts, and we want to work together on what is uniting us, not on what this, again, in terms of perception of threats, is maybe making us less close one to the other.
All right. I'd like to ask you about the latest round of sanctions from the European Union. One Indian company, one Indian entity has also been sanctioned according to certain reports. Could you tell us what has been found in this particular case, and what is the message?
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, it's not been sanctioned. I mean, let me explain. We have said the European Union has established a set of sanctions vis-à-vis Russia, and so a number of products that are helping Russia to build their military capacity have been sanctions in Europe, and we do not want them to be exported to Russia. What is happening that there are some companies around the world that are creating schemes that essentially they import these products from Europe, and through these companies then they are going to Russia, so what we call circumvention of sanctions. What we want to do is to stop these processes, and so we are, together with the help of our customs services, intelligence, we are trying to identify which are the companies that are doing this activity, and we are signaling them to our European companies, telling them you cannot work with these companies because these companies are going against our sanctions. So it's not that we are sanctioning third companies, but we are limiting the capacity of European companies to work with them.
Could you tell us a bit about this company which you have identified?
I mean, I'm not going to name names, but there are around the world, I mean, a number of companies that are doing this. We have a coordinator for sanctions implementation and enforcement that is running this work, as are doing other countries, United States, United Kingdom, and we are cooperating also very closely together with them. And again, we are trying to identify this company and to stop these processes, which is damaging for our economy, but is also providing Russia of what we are trying to avoid that they can get.
Did you take this up with the Indian government as well, telling them that this...
Yes. We have been very transparent since the beginning. We have a mechanism by which essentially we, before taking any initiative, any action, we inform the government. We started discussion with them. But again, I mean, it's a private activity, so we are not targeting a government or a country. We are just specifically targeting a specific company or companies that are doing this work.
Right. I'd like to ask you about the Indo-Pacific, which I believe is another priority area for you. Keeping in mind what's happening geopolitically, what has been the conversation, your message, your immediate expectation from India on Indo-Pacific cooperation?
Look, I mean,
or the threats you see.
Yes, I mean, I have two main points on this. First of all, that geography or distance is much less relevant than it used to be before. In a way, security has become much more global. What is happening in the Indo-Pacific is very relevant for us. It's very relevant economically because this is a region through which good part of our trade and our goods, or the goods that are coming to Europe comes from. It is important because the stability of this region, the freedom of navigation is something that is important for all of us. And the second point is that the situation of unpeace. There has been a scholar that has called the present situation that we are living a situation of unpeace, which is not war, but no longer full peace. Is pushing us to think much more worldwide, and it's what we are doing. So back in 2021, we have started an articulate strategy with the Indo-Pacific region, which is covering more traditional areas like trade or like economy, areas which are of common interest like climate change or digital, and new areas of cooperation like security, and maritime security is certainly one which is very relevant for us. So we are trying to, let's say, to identify together what we can do more for the stability of the region, which is very relevant for you. You live here, and for us, because the immediate consequences of what is happening here are very clear.
When it comes to the India-EU FTA talks, there have been 6 or 7 rounds of talks already. Where do you see that heading? Do you feel that there are some clear hurdles which need to be crossed? Is there a path to the finish that you see right now?
I think that we are at the 7th round, and one is taking place right now in these days. There is a large delegation of the trade negotiators here in Delhi. I think that there is yes, there is a path. I think that there is a clear interest there again on both sides to move ahead. There are two large blocs that have the will, certainly the political will to move ahead. As every trade negotiations, it's always very delicate because you have to balance the interests on both sides. You have to make sure also that the result of the negotiations is ratified by our parliaments, and we have very attentive parliaments in Europe about trade and economy aspects. So we'll need to make sure that the elements are in place. We wanted to have an ambitious negotiations which is covering a large number of sectors, not only goods but also services, new areas of cooperation. So it takes some time, and sometimes we would like to go faster, but I think that the political will is certainly there.
But any internal deadline?
I think that the deadlines are always artificial, because somehow you can set a deadline when you see the end of the story, and then you say, okay, then we really give a final acceleration. But I would not put any kind of artificial deadline to this negotiation.